Thanks for joining. My name's Nick Buzier. I'm the Managing Director of Liminal VR. We're a virtual reality company based in Melbourne. So I'm here to talk about virtual reality in the electrical sector. And we've been, I guess the reason, and I'm joined here with Michael Midders from Lumina Technologies, and we're missing Matt Thornton from Endeavour Energy, but we'll push through and see where we get to.
He's just written to me saying it dropped out and he'll be jumping back in.
Okay, excellent.
The joys of live TV and live streaming.
That's right. So I thought so maybe just to start, I'll talk a little bit about Liminal, then maybe I'll handball to you, Michael, to talk about Lumina, and then hopefully by that stage Matt would have joined and we can take it from there.
No problems.
So Liminal is a virtual reality studio based in Melbourne, Australia. We, I guess, specialize in the application of neuroscience and cognitive psychology principles to inform the design and development of virtual reality solutions. We have a dedicated team of researchers, as well as a development team, 2 PhD level researchers, one being a behavioral neuroscientist and another emotion and cognition analyst who's recently completed his PhD through Deakin University School of Psychology. So I guess Liminal has really two dimensions to what we do. We've got I guess a live virtual reality platform called the Liminal platform, which is a platform of short virtual reality experiences to change how people feel and perform. It's really not really the purpose of this session, but there's a live app on the Meta store for those with MetaQuest headsets that you can download and try. And we also do a lot of virtual reality training for accelerated learning, and really like to find ways to apply our research into that. So the reason we're doing this session is because I guess we've partnered with LuminaVR, who are a really wonderful VR consultant that we've been working with over the years, and also with Matt Thornton and Endeavour Energy, who are I guess a client of ours, and we've been working on this great project, and we're looking to engage with the energy sector and you know, at large, and sort of talk about our project and some of the learnings and the journey that we've been on. So maybe Michael, I'll pass to you and talk about yourself, and then we'll move on to Matt.
Great, excellent. G'day, guys. As Nick has introduced, so my name is Michael Midders. I'm from Lumina Technologies. Our VR section of the business is LuminaVR. Basically, LuminaVR, I should give you, what my position is. So I'm the co-founder and managing director of the business. LuminaVR was founded on the notion, the premise that VR is a different animal. When it comes to just general technology, VR is quite different. It's quite segregated from itself, like from one headset versus another headset versus another headset, and what's available on each one. And there are very good reasons for that. It's not just that the companies or the vendors are looking to segregate themselves. It has a lot to do with the way the headsets interact, so what's happening with the controls and all that kind of stuff. So there are some challenges when it comes to VR, and we recognize that fairly early. And so what we decided to do was to pivot our business at the time, which was a little bit different, and to go into VR consulting or immersive tech consulting to help organizations through all of those challenges and help them build strategies that are going to work. So, what kind of, content and platforms are you looking for? Okay, great. Let's talk about the hardware now, so let's talk about what it is that you're after first and the solution, and then let's talk about the hardware. Whereas what we found at the time was that a lot of businesses or organizations were going for the hardware first and then trying to fit it all into there and getting all messed up. So that's generally our position. Our position is to sit between the vendor and the client, and to act on the client's behalf to work with the vendors to partner everything together and just make it all work. So we will help to provision the headsets and set them all up and get them installed and do the whole bit. And that's generally our position. We came across Endeavour Energy and Matt a few years back when we were doing a presentation. Yeah, Matt and I got to chatting, and there was a proof of concept, coming together at the time. Yeah, we were fortunate enough to be a part of that proof of concept. Yeah, we've sort of, held together a good working relationship ever since. I hope it's a good working relationship, but from our perspective it is, Matt. I'm hoping from yours it is too. Yeah, we've had a good working relationship ever since. Yeah, again, as Nick has sort of said, look, because this particular partnership or this particular collaboration has really worked out well, where it's almost like a three-pronged attack at the the solution itself, to say, okay, well, what is it from the client's perspective, and how is it supposed to look at the end? And then we have the developer, obviously, and then we have a consultant in the middle to sort of just help put all of it together, and make sure it all stays on track. Yeah, that's us in a nutshell. So I suppose I'll pass over to Matt to give us a little bit of background into you, mate. I think you're on mute, Matt. The joys of tech.
Yeah, there you go. Zoom, I tell you. So used to Teams, but anyway. Yeah, my name's Matt Thornton, technical training manager at Endeavour Energy. I look after the apprenticeship program and educational technology. So how I got involved with Michael there. So we were at a leadership conference that he was presenting some of the VR and what it could do for companies like us. And probably for about 2 to 3, maybe a little bit more years now, we've been looking for more engaging ways to train. To remove some of the heavy equipment that we drag around our company. So we've got so for instance, our polarity trainer that we're currently building with Liminal and Lumina, where it's trying to replace something that's really heavy for our guys to take around. And we've actually had a few incidents with people's back and a few safety incidents that we need to sort of reduce that weight on the guys, and VR was one of the things that we thought might be able to fix that. Aside to that, it's much more engaging. We can put some really cool things in there to really engage the guys, really test the guys, and make sure they understand what's going on. So, and another thing to that is efficiency in training. So we're hoping that we gain a few efficiencies by being able to do 5 people at once, have it report to our LMS, and then just reduce a little bit of the paperwork burden on our AES trainers. So, yeah, about our story, what we have. We've tried a few different platforms. We started out with another company and headed down the right track, but then we jumped over to Liminal and Lumina. It seems to it's come a long way since we first started. So we've also had a look at different types of VR where we're sitting in, say, an EWP and using an actual EWP that has vibrations and movements and things like that actually makes you feel like you're up in the air. So we've been around and had a look at a lot of different things, and hopefully we're on the right path now.
Okay.
That's great, and it might be worth just chiming in here and just talking about VR training generally. Like I think there's a lot of unique aspects of the technology that really I think is important for people to recognize, and like one of the things is that what you're really doing is you're creating context, you're creating scenarios, and you're creating, you're giving people this ability to interact in a virtual world, immersed in a completely designed and tailored environment. So that delivers active and contextual learning rather than just the traditional mode of like information dissemination that, maybe a traditional e-learn or something like that might give you. So you're getting a far more engaging, immersive and practical type of training delivery. And what it allows you to do is simulate processes and procedures and scale them across an entire organization and possibly even an industrial sector. So there's lots of research that's been done in virtual realities and the benefits that are delivered by training, and it's really been shown to and there's been meta-analyses of these where it's increased across a range of different studies, speed to competency, retention, and really I think there's really unique types of training that it can deliver as well, which we'll touch on as down the track. But you're really engaging people's senses, engaging them emotionally and cognitively, and you can tailor these very, very specific design solutions to really deliver on a learning need in a way that's far more memorable than other modalities. So that's the reason Liminal, and I know Lumina, and we've got an interesting wordplay there with Liminal and Lumina, but that's why we do what we do. When you add LinkedIn Live to that, it gets even more crazy. But like
try to say it 5 times quickly.
Yeah, exactly.
Liminal and Lumina on LinkedIn Live.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, so there's a lot of really unique benefits there that I think is important to consider when you're trying to work out, well, is VR going to be a good fit for a particular training need? So yeah, maybe Matt, I think just talking about maybe we can move on to the process a little bit as well. Yeah. I think we've and probably also worth acknowledging that not everyone here will really know what 3-phase polarity training is like and 3-phase and installations and things like that. Like, maybe if you want to just quickly touch on, just for a layperson, what this training was about, and then we could probably move on to Michael and talk about what your role at the inception phase was in helping sort of guide Matt through the process.
Yeah, so originally when we started this, us and Essential Energy had decided we wanted to be able to try and make our polarity training, which polarity is at your switchboard at your house. Those wires that come from the street, they have to be hooked up in a certain way. If they're not hooked up in that right way, we can cause an extremely dangerous situation, which can end up in a death at the very worst case. So it's imperative that our crews do that exactly right every time. So we're looking at ways, and we do this training once a year to make sure that they're doing everything correctly. We're looking at ways that, one, they could probably do it multiple times over the year, make it fun, but also, again, so it does report to an LMS, and we can tell that they've done it. And again, reduce that weight of the actual overall training prop, so to speak. So yeah, originally we started that with Essential Energy, and we've got the 3-phase and the single-phase version now. They're much similar, both organisations. Ours has come a long way now, and is really, really nice to use. So it flows nice, it looks nice in there. You can't tell that you're in a cartoon world. So it's a little bit more. It's not as realistic as it used to be, but it flows a lot nicer and works a lot better. So the guys will go up and they use real tools, the actual tools that we have out in the field. They've all been modelled. They have a toolbox with all of those tools in them. and they're able to use the exact processes that they would do out in the field. Makes the same sounds, does everything exactly the same as out in the field. Yeah, it's wonderful. So really get immersed in it. So
yeah, there is something to be said about the believability of that, of the immersion and the context. Like when you put the context together, and the way that you interact with the tools being the same way that you would interact with the real tool, and then the immersion, all of it coming together to create that recall. And I think that that's really the key to it, is to make it really believable to your brain, so that way once your brain actually goes, oh yeah, I've seen this before. When I pick up this tool, I've seen this before. I know what I need to do. And yeah, that's really interesting that you brought that up. That's great. Yeah, so I suppose when we were first brought on, it was like I say, it was a couple of years ago. It was with a developer that was already on the project, and that was working out really, really well. Everything worked out very well there. Coming back to it later, we were tasked to come back in and just scour around and look for other ways that we could do it. And one of our recommendations was to maybe possibly look at having a look at some of the other developers around who were specialized in the area, who could really maybe give it a bit of a different treatment. And look, it was we think that we worked out really well with that. We brought a few developers to the table, some of them better than others. And we've jumped onto Liminal, and I think the reason why Liminal has been chosen, or one of the reasons from our perspective, and Matt, you confirm or deny it, was because Liminal also brings that the psychology of it into the training as well. And I think that sort of differs quite a bit from other developers and what they are able to bring to the table. That they might be able to bring all sorts of other technology integrations and all sorts of other things, but to make the VR part of it really believable, which is what we're trying to really achieve, rather than all of the other bells and whistles that we can get with other larger companies. In this particular case, we were looking for a specialized believability of it, and to also look at other things like into the future, which was such items as human factors and those kinds of things, which really do require that psychology and the behavioral sort of work behind it. And knowing that going into the future, that's why I believe it was that Liminal were chosen. So it was the expertise and the specialization, and the experience, the value add. It's almost like a value add, but it's kind of saying, look, we're going to bring this all together. And also, from our past experience working with Liminal and working with other developers as well, we found that there was already a really good working relationship there from other past work. Ultimately, it did come right back down to Endeavour and Matt and the team and what they've thought. And so yeah, that's kind of how the journey then sort of morphed over to the second, let's say, iteration of the journey. Yeah, that's how we started that particular journey with Liminal anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think Michael, it's been a really great process at our end too. Usually when we're working with clients, we tend to work directly with the client, and having an organization like Lumina, like you've really brought a lot to the table in helping us sort of work with Matt and sort of brought Matt up to speed with some of the things we're thinking from our perspective, and you sort of help bridge the gap at our end as well, with some of the requirements that Matt have, and taking us through a lot of the history of the project and where it's come from and where it's going, and at the heart of all this, and any custom development project in not just in VR, but in simulation, probably software generally, is a collaboration. Like it's always a co-designed approach between, the more, a really good core group, with a multidisciplinary team sort of coming to a project like this can really bring out the benefits of what the technology can deliver. So we've had expertise from Matt and Lee Blackburn, who's been I guess providing that subject matter expertise from Endeavour's side. There's on Liminal's side we've had like Rob Romano, who's been the lead developer of the project. We've had a script writer, Amanda Soleil, who's really sort of helped us shape a learning design from a VR perspective. And we've more recently been bringing in our researchers as well into like Dr. Adam Barton, who did his PhD in virtual reality and focus and attention. And we're now sort of expanding on this original initiative to build in distractions in the field and create a training program that really draws on a whole bunch of research he's been doing over a number of years. And then having Lumina in the mix, and helping sort of facilitate that process, guide the project management side, help with the UX design decisions and the QA has been really helpful at our end and really sort of facilitated the process. So maybe like what I might do is just quickly talk about the program that we've developed, and just in basic terms. We don't need to get into all the nuts and bolts of it, but from the get-go, Matt decided, and I guess we proposed this at the time, that we take a platform-based approach to developing the application, and this is important because I've seen it numerous times in different organizations. You can end up with a very piecemeal approach where you have different apps built over time, often by different developers with different user experience design approaches with different interactions, a whole range of different things that don't necessarily talk to each other and are not coherent. So the last thing you want is this hodgepodge of different standalone applications that all work differently and have a different onboarding sequence required for the trainee, because then it gets very clunky and difficult to manage. So what we decided to do was create an immersive learning platform that was hooked up to the LMS with a user login and authentication process that was all driven by the LMS. So you can launch multiple modules, be able to expand on it over time to help facilitate a product roadmap for Endeavour. And then we've got different modules within this app. So we've got a training mode where for both single and 3-phase installation training, where you've got like a guided walkthrough, and it's a real facilitated process, facilitated by a narrator, where you're, it's really spelling out step by step exactly what you have to do as a trainee when you're when you're completing these processes. If you make mistakes, it's forgiving. You get guided feedback in real time, and we get some analytics that we're tracking along the way, which feeds back into the LMS. And then we've got an assessment mode. Once they've passed that initial training module, then you strip away all the guidance and you let them let the trainee sort of prove their competence, I guess, and be able to manage the scenario autonomously without all that guidance and feedback. So it's like a two-stage process, which has been really really seamless. And then we've got our script writers. At the get-go, we worked with Michael, we worked with Matt and Lee from Endeavour, and we really, who provided us a lot of the background information and videos and things like that we needed to really understand the issue, because we're not electricians. We know about neuroscience and psychology and VR development, software development, but obviously we needed that guidance from the client side. And so we went away, asked a lot of questions, had a few back and forth workshops, and then came up with a script, and then prototyped the solution and got feedback as we went. And it was a very agile sort of process along the way. So that's really been the process we always like to undertake whenever we're developing a VR solution. And having Michael there as well, and guiding that process has been really good on the project management side. And maybe Michael, you can talk a little bit more about that, like what your role was, and during the development phase, and sort of how you went about it.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. Yeah, so I think that understanding the history, as you brought up earlier, was a major part of it. Was to sort of say, okay, well, this is where we've been, and this is where Endeavour plan on going next, and then just helping to facilitate that understanding across all the parties, and just making sure that everybody knows what their role is and what we wanted to create. But then as builds were being, sent out, and we had all these APKs coming out of us. It was great. We were testing, looking for UX and UI improvements, because look, it was great. We could always go like, oh, let's try and make this a little bit better, so that it's just a little bit smoother, a little bit easier on the brain. So less clicks. And looking for little bugs that might sort of pop up and sort of go like, hey, that's annoying, let's get that out of the way, all that kind of stuff. And so every time you build a new APK, you get like new little bugs that sort of to come out there. So that the idea is you test it right to the nth degree, and things that can affect that, like for instance, completely unintentional is if the headset goes to sleep. What happens then? Does that trigger a bug that that wasn't meant to be there? And so so we would test to the nth degree, document all of that testing, facilitate the next meeting or the next sprint to say, okay, guys, look, we're ready. We've done our testing. Check in with Matt and the team at Endeavour to see whether they've done their testing as well, and then we could come in together and say, okay, let's talk about what it is that we found, what we like, what we don't like, what we should change going forward. And then and really that was the process over and over, just repetitively, getting through all of that, and then testing and questioning every part of it, probably annoyingly so. Sorry, Matt, I know that sometimes there were points where we were kind of like going, do we really want to do that? But I think that's kind of, that was part of our role. It's more than just the simple testing and finding of things. It's to question those things. It's to say, is that really the way we want to go with the UI? Is that, should we point and click, or should we actually insert, like what is it that we're really trying to create? Because when you do these things, you want to create that recall, and that recall is going to be created by the action, not just the recall of what took place. And so that was kind of what we were questioning throughout the entire process. And we would question it within the team, all the time. We were like, do you really think that that's really the best way? And I don't know. And so sometimes it took a little bit longer to do the testing, than just a couple of days. We would actually really go to the nth degree. And then, that was pretty much, what it was that we were doing, I suppose that was kind of our role.
Yeah. Also, for me, for a company like yourself to have, you guys there, like I've got limited time that I can dedicate to a lot of projects. So having a project manager there, that's probably our biggest thing for me. Like Lee and myself both have other jobs that we have to do, Lee especially. And it was just good to have somebody external to be able to keep up with what is a fairly fast paced. Yeah, keep pushing along. The other thing too is to be able to go, hey, Michael, I don't like this. Can you fix it? And off you'd go and fix it. So, cool. Especially in the past, when we just weren't getting anywhere with stuff. Understood. Yeah.
So Matt, what, like, do you want to just give us a bit more about, because that was from our side, but and Nick sort of spoken about his side of it. When you were getting the APKs, what were some of the things that you were looking for?
So we're looking for it. How's our workers, young and old, how are they going to look at it? How are they going to think about it? We want them to be as realistic as possible. We didn't want it to be very technical, so we don't want reading inside of it. We don't want these strange game-like features and things like an adventure game. We didn't want anything like that. We wanted something that felt like you turned up to a switchboard and you were just doing your task. Of course, there's going to be minor tweaks in how you do things with your hands and stuff like that. Like, you can't mimic everything exactly, but we got close enough. And I think the guys' ability to pick it up now, and it doesn't take long now for them to just go through the whole process, do the assessment, which is great. One of the good things is we're about to implement that towards the end of the year. We're going to start putting it out to our staff at our AES, annual electrical safety training days. And go through a year-long trial now to see how it goes. So
that's great. That's a really interesting point that you brought up. It's a really interesting point that you brought up, which is to be able to deliver it, or to have people from all sorts of different backgrounds, age groups, and also jump into it and actually accept it. Because that's a definite hurdle when you come to the integration of it with the actual classroom and with the team, and all, because you're going to have team leaders who are going to say like, do they really have to do this? If it's too much of a toy, then they'll just treat it that way. And so it's really interesting that you brought that up. That's something that from our perspective, we wouldn't have that kind of perspective to think about how our team, our actual team, is going to work with it. We can theorize around it. We can make it theoretically, look, we think that, they're going to pick it up easier if we do this or if we do that. But your team, and so that's, again, coming back to that, this three-pronged attack on it. You guys really understand your team. You guys really understand the subject matter and how people are going to pick it up. How would you pick it up? How would somebody else pick it up? How would a trainee? How would someone who's been there 15 years pick it up? And so, that's really interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah, and at our end too, it's always a consideration. In fact, it's the overriding consideration in any VR program is how do you develop things with accessibility in mind? Like, we at Liminal, we have a bias towards simplicity with these things, and the UX is something that's very it's sacrosanct to us. Like, for us, when we are designing things, we assume, especially for training programs like this, that people who are using it to learn a new skill or a new process, they don't necessarily have any familiarity with the headset and the controllers at all. So we try and minimize the amount of functionality that they have to learn and the amount of buttons that they have to click. And, we always try and deliver the information in a way that is, that is accessible and instantly available within the scenario at any one time. Make sure they know what they have to do. Make sure that they're properly onboarded into how to use the application and what the purpose of the task and the learning outcomes are. And that's like, and that's a really, really, really important task, and something that's often forgotten, I think, in VR development. A lot of where a lot of VR projects can go wrong is where the developers are thinking from a developer's point of view, and they sometimes think, okay, yeah, I know how to use this. I've tested it. It works. But the person on the other end has just sometimes getting them to put the headset on and then know to look around, and that they're actually in a virtual reality environment. If you're using VR for the first time, you don't even know that. So like, it's all about so it's all we don't. So with this application, we spent a lot of R&D on the toolbox itself, and I think, Michael, we could probably share some videos with anyone who's interested in
for sure.
seeing what we did. But yeah, like we don't want it's not necessary to have to physically go over to a toolbox, physically open it up, physically pull out the tool that you want. You know, like we wanted to find really quick, accessible ways to bring the tools to the person, so you don't have to move around within the virtual world, and you can easily get rid of them when you've done with that task. So we literally devised this almost like this 2D interface which pulls out the tools, and then you can grab the tool and do what you need to do with it. And then when you finish with it, you can just chuck it away. It just disappears in a puff of smoke. So like trying to find like I guess gamified ways to make it fun, accessible, enjoyable, but as Matt said, not distract you from the main task. Like what we really want to make sure is, once people are in there and once they're onboarded in the scenario, the VR actually disappears, and they're not thinking about the VR. They're just thinking about what they need to learn, what the task is. And that's the goal of any VR training program or any VR project generally, really. Like you've got to figure the whole hardware and headset and controls need to be invisible, and you forget about it after a while.
Yeah, I love that idea. I love that thought, because it is something that is definitely forgotten, as you say, in the sector, in the industry. You know, we use VR all the time. We are just so used to using VR that we go through, oh, look, what's the standard process for this and what's the standard process for that? But when we're thinking about who the end user is going to be, for the first time, they may never have used VR, you know. And so, you know, it's one of those things to make the whole thing accessible, as you say, and acceptable, you know, to them as well, so that they can actually feel like, oh, what is this? I'm not picking up a joystick and playing a game. You know, I'm actually doing the task, you know. So yeah, that's really interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah, maybe I'm conscious of time, so maybe let's just push on to maybe the final part of what we wanted to talk about is like what the roadmap of you know Endeavour's program is more generally. So Matt, we're working on a current project that builds on the single and three-phase installation training that we've developed to bring about you know distractions within the scenario, and so maybe do you want to just talk a little bit about, from Endeavour's side, what prompted that? Why are you focusing on human factors and distraction, and what problem are you looking to solve with this next phase of work? So
the next phase of work is all about most of our incidents have happened. Not most of them, but a high number of them happen because either the people have got distracted, something's happened around them, they've gone off to answer a phone call, come back and trying to use their memory to where they were up to. We don't want our crews to do that. We want ours is a very regulated industry. Say for switching, for example, high voltage switching, we're switching the network. We need to go through a list, check that list, make sure we're at the right point in that list, and it's just over and over again checking off that we're at the right spot. If somebody's distracted in that point, we don't want them to walk away and go, okay, yeah, I was up to step, say, 15, I'm going to do that, because they could have actually been up to step 18 already or step 13, and could be quite a dangerous situation. So that the guys now want to try and do something around getting training the guys what to do in a distraction. So phone rings, there's a car accident around the corner, there's a barking dog or a dog that goes to attack them, or like all different things around all the bad things that could happen to them, and the things that bring up their stress levels, how to bring that back down and then focus back onto the job they've got.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And at Liminal's level, like where I guess that's where our research background comes into it. So we're involving one of our researchers, Dr. Adam Barton, in the project, who's I guess, PhD has been in this, in virtual reality and attention, and so he brings like a wealth of background knowledge that is, you know, informing the evolution of the project, and it's about like we're focusing on like not just you know, bringing in distractions, but like at what point in the process are we bringing the distractions? There are some really key moments, I think, in that step-by-step cycle that Matt was spelling out, that you know, where things are maybe more dangerous, and we really want to bring in a sort of varied approach to what the distractions might be, because you know, and we want to make them realistic. Like we're going to animate an old, you know, an annoying client who comes out the front door and starts, you know, I guess, you know, asking annoying questions and things like that. So, you know, like there'll be some, and we've got like a phone ringing, and you know, a lot of innocuous things can take you away from what it is that you really need to be focusing on in the moment. And so we're looking at ways to sort of, you know, bring that about. And I think we've lost Matt, have we? Yeah.
No, that's right there.
Yeah. You slipped out of my view in Zoom.
You're right.
Yeah. So yeah, like there's a lot of, you know, really interesting research that we're sort of bringing into that. And what we're thinking about is, okay, if you're distracted, you might have a high level of confidence in the middle of a complex or potentially dangerous process that, hey, this is a, you know, like I know where I'm up to, I could just push on and do what I need to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're right. So like, you know, because of the complexity and potential, you know, high risk of some of these tasks, we want people to be aware of that when they have potentially been distracted. It's better to double back, take a few steps back, go back to you know, and restart a procedure again, just to make sure that you're not making any dangerous mistakes.
And capturing that data as to, well, what are they really doing? You know, what do they, I mean, there's the policy. There is definitely, you know, the policy of, you know, you do this, you do X, but are they really doing it? You know, when they jump into it, you know, and they feel like, okay, well, this is what I'm doing. You know, do they forget the policy, or do they just ignore the policy? Or we can actually capture that data and then push that back to the LMS in some sort of way to say, well, this is what the policy actually says, but this is what is actually being done. Yeah. And that's really important information, you know, because then that really then informs the training again, you know, and the way that you enforce the policies and how you speak to the, you know, people about the policy, why they're so important. So yeah, we're really looking forward to this one. This one sounds like a lot of fun, but also a little bit of a different approach to what it is that we're used to doing, you know, from our side of things, from Lumina. So yeah, we're really looking forward to this project, you know.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think yeah, probably worth just wrapping up just at this point. I think we've been chatting for a while, so I think in terms of where we're going from here, as you mentioned, Michael, we're building out this distraction scenario, and I think Endeavour have plans to sort of over time establish a broader roadmap for their VR agenda and build that out further. But in the meantime, I guess we're looking at you know, engaging with the sector more broadly, seeing, you know, who's out there, who might be interested in doing this kind of work, do something innovative. We've really got a solid base and foundation now. We've really gone through the you know, the grinder. So creating this UX that we really believe in and that we think really works for this kind of training. So I guess just from our perspective, you know, if there's anyone who's interested in doing, you know, further work in, be it in electrical training or VR training more broadly, like, you know, we're very, very keen to hear from you. Either approach you know, myself or Michael, and you know, we can have some further discussions around that. And I'm sure, like Matt too. Like, I know, for example, in Endeavour are very collaborative in nature, and they don't see themselves as being in competition with other organizations in the sector. Like, everyone wants, you know, high quality, safe, you know, training being put out there, like and ensuring that there's standards, you know, at an industry level. So yeah, like, from our perspective, that would be a really great outcome. If anyone wants to know more, please feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. Anybody can reach out just on LinkedIn would be fine. You'll easily find us there. So yeah, thank you very much. You know, yeah, Matt, any final words?
No, not from me. No, but yeah, all good. So yeah, it's been a good thing to do. So we're going to continue on making more and more, hopefully, as funds allow. So,
of course, yeah.
Sounds great. Well, thanks so much, guys, and thanks everyone who's taken the time to listen in, whether you're watching this live or after the fact. Really appreciate you checking in, and we'd love to hear from you.
Take it easy, guys.